Hey, what's up, everyone? Recently, I've released my version 2 Xbox Series X and S one-handed adapters. And with that, there's a slightly different installation than version 1. So today we're going to do a full install of both the right and left-handed version 2 adapters. My goal for these version 2 adapters was pretty much just to bring over the best features that version 1 had to offer, as well as to improve upon areas that could have used a little bit of an upgrade. One of those areas I felt like needed a little bit of an upgrade was actually with the ease of install. The body shape is slightly different than the version 1 adapters, and because of that, the new install should be a little bit easier than in version 1. But I'm just going to show you guys how to do that here. For this video, I'm just going to focus on doing the installation and uninstallation process for both left and right-handed Xbox version 2 adapters. If you want to learn more about the features that these adapters have to offer and how they compare to their version 1 counterparts, I do have a full in-depth video discussing that. So if you want to learn more about that, then I'll put the link to that video in the description, and it should pop up on your screen here as well. So we'll start with the right-handed Xbox adapter, and then we'll do the left-handed one in a minute here. If you have a left-handed Xbox adapter, you can use the timestamps down in the description to click to that part of the video. So here we have our controller. And when you receive your adapter in the mail, you should find a few bubble wrap packs in the box. One of them will contain your mostly assembled adapter. So you should get the right-handed adapter body with the joystick arm installed onto it, as well as a medium height bumper lever and a medium height trigger lever reinstalled onto the adapter. Strapped to the joystick arm, you'll find the joystick cradle with the linkage bar reinstalled onto that. I usually ship them like this, bubble wrap together. So once you undo the bubble wrap, it should reveal this. You'll also find this baggie underneath all the bubble wrap of the main adapter. It'll be here. So once you unwrap the whole thing, it'll look something like this. And this little baggie just has those joystick cradle locking mechanisms. These are optional. I'll talk about these pieces towards the end of the installs. We won't need them yet. So I'm going to go ahead and put these off to the side. This is what you'll find in one of those bubble wrap packs. So in the second bubble wrap pack, you'll find 2 extra trigger levers. This one's broken. Yours will not be broken. It's also a mid height one. Yours will be a low height one. The mid height one should be installed on the adapter already. So you'll get a fully intact low height trigger lever, a tall trigger lever. You'll get a tall bumper lever, a low height bumper lever with the medium one already being installed on the adapter. You'll also get an extra joystick cradle with the locking mechanism and the stick click pad. And you'll get an extra joystick linkage bar. So this is the bar that bridges the gap between the joystick cradle and the joystick arm, which is here on the adapter. In a third pack, you should also find these 3 D-pad extenders. One of them is a standard height extender. One of them is a tall extender. So it just gives you a little bit of extra clearance. And that's useful if you need some extra clearance for your thumb, because this sticks over the path the right analog stick travels in a little bit. So it sits like this, and there should be enough clearance underneath it to where your thumb can pass underneath without touching it. If you prefer something that doesn't have this contoured thumb pad and you just want something that you can quickly swipe up against, that's what this one is. This one's just a ball-ended D-pad extender. If yours falls out like this, it's pretty simple to redo. You just line it up so that the end is pointing the same direction as this nub down here on the bottom. So something like that. So once you unpack everything, this is all of the extra parts that you'll have, along with the adapter and the 2 locking mechanisms for the joystick cradle. So at this point, just choose the D-pad extender which you want to use. I'm going to use the standard height D-pad extender, and then everything else is spare parts, so these can all go off to the side. So now we'll actually get to the installation process, and that's going to consist of us putting the adapter onto the controller, putting the joystick cradle with the linkage bar onto the right analog stick, and then clipping this linkage bar to the joystick arm. Also, before we actually put the controller into the adapter, just note that this D-pad extender needs to be installed onto the adapter last. If you install it before you put the controller into the adapter, you actually won't be able to get the controller in the adapter. So this has to go on as the very last piece. So from here, we just want to lay the adapter out like this. Make sure that the bumper lever and trigger lever are flat or slightly angled this way. You just want to make sure that they're not pointed down into the adapter like that, as it might interfere with the install. So just make sure that they're flat or up and angled away. From here, we want to take the left handle of the controller and just line it up between this left retaining arm and the bottom of the adapter. And we're just going to let it sit there like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab the controller and the adapter all from behind the controller like this. And I just want to slip the bottom of the controller underneath this lip on the bottom of the adapter. So I'm going to slide it in like that. And from here, you want to slide it up and into the retaining arm as far as it'll go at this point. So it should look something like this. It's touching the retaining arm, and the bottom of the controller is in the bottom of the adapter. Now, when I grab the top, I accidentally unclipped this trigger lever, which is fine. We'll just go ahead and install that after it's on the controller. I'll also show you how to switch out these trigger levers, because you might even want to use a different height one. So I pre-installed a mid-height one, but maybe you want to use a tall or low. So I'll show you how to do that in a second. From here, what we need to do is worry about getting the top of the adapter up and over the top of the controller. And the way that I do this is by putting my thumb on the front face of the controller near the top by where the Xbox button is at. So I'm basically using my thumb to push the controller into the adapter, and I'm using my middle finger and index finger to push the adapter into the controller. And when I do that, the top of the adapter should start to slide over the top of the controller until it snaps into place. So now at this point, we want to install the joystick cradle onto the left analog stick. Some of you might find it easier to slide the joystick cradle onto the stick first. You want to make sure that it goes onto the left analog stick with the stick click pad facing the inside of the controller. From here, I would recommend actually hanging the joystick arm off the side of the desk. My camera's fixed in place at the moment, so I'm just going to use my hand and pretend that it's like the surface of a desk. So I would hang this handle off the side so that the arm is free. And then from here, you can clip it into the linkage bar. Just like that. If you want, instead of installing the joystick cradle first, like I did, some of you might find it easier to actually just clip this linkage bar to the joystick arm first. And then just like I did, you hang this side of the controller off the side of your desk, freeze this arm up, and then you can slide it into place from the top of the analog stick down to the bottom. Just like that. From here, if you want to use a D-pad extender, this is when you can install that. If you don't want to use a D-pad extender, then just leave this off to the side and you can use the D-pad as normal if you prefer to do that. To install it, what you want to do is clip the side with this long protrusion that goes on the left retaining arm on the adapter body, and then the short 90-degree protrusion goes on the bottom of the adapter here. And the D-pad extender should be pointing towards the face buttons, towards the right side of the controller. If it's not, if it falls out of its socket, then these do clip in, but I'll show you on the ball-ended one. That one's already loose for me. So if it falls out of place like this, then you just want to make sure that it's pointing towards the right side of the controller. and it'll actually just slot back into place. There's these 4 notches, and that's what helped this D-pad extender actually slot into its mount. So to install this, I'm going to go ahead and put this side in first. So I want to line up this ball clip with this one. And usually I squeeze from the bottom of the controller to the top. So it's like I'm squeezing the controller and that clip together. And then same thing with this. So now it's in place. If you want to uninstall this, all you need to do is pull up from the circular bit here and pull straight up and back, and it'll pop out. So for the bumper and trigger levers to uninstall these, you want to push evenly on both sides of this little claw here. You just push straight down, pops out, and then it'll slide right underneath that bar that it clips to. Now, if you want to reinstall these levers, some of you might find it easier to do when the adapter is actually off the controller. You can still install it when it's on the controller. Just be aware that you may need to actually push down on the bumper or the trigger as you install it, just to get the clearance for this claw to fit underneath the bar that it clips to here. So to install these, they slide underneath the bar like this. And then you want to line up the claw with the narrow part of the bar, right? This middle bit is thicker, so it stops this from wobbling around too much. You line it up like this so that the claw is aligned with the narrow bit, and then you want to pull up from the bottom that, and it clips into place. Same thing with the trigger lever. This will fit underneath it. If you're using the tall one, it may not fit straight up and down. So if that's the case, then you would fit it to the side like this first and then rotate it. And again, this is the part where I was talking about where you may need to push down on the trigger to get the clearance for this claw to fit underneath the bar. So after I install that, I'm going to go ahead and push down on the trigger with my index finger. Just so that the claw lines up with the bar. Then from here, again, we want to push up evenly from both sides so that the claw clips onto the bar, just like that. And now you're done. There's one last optional piece that you can install if you wish. That's what these joystick cradle locking bars are for. Typically, you won't need these if you have a newer controller or your controller's in good shape. You won't need to use these. Friction should be enough to hold it into place. If you have an older controller or you've just really used your controller a lot and the thumbsticks are starting to wear down, you might find that after a couple hours of use, this joystick cradle will start to slide off the stick. If that's the case, then you can install this little locking mechanism to help hold it into place. So to do that, we'll open up the bag. There's 2 in here. One of them is an extra, and it goes along with the extra joystick cradle. And the way that this installs onto the adapter is that this little snap fit ball joint fits into this little claw right here. So you want to line up this top hat with the top of the claw like that, and then squeeze from the bottom of the joystick cradle towards the top of this little locking bar till it pops into place like that. And that's it. So now if you want to uninstall your adapter, if you ever need to take it off the controller, the way that I would do this is by unclipping the linkage bar from the joystick arm like that, taking off the D-pad extender if you still had that installed, And then from here, I just hold the controller as if I'm going to use it. And I'm going to push up on the lip on the top of the adapter here. And that's it. The whole adapter should pop off from there. And then if you want to uninstall this joystick cradle, take the locking bar off, and then it should slide off the same way that it slid on. So that's it for the right-handed adapter. We'll go ahead and move on to the left-handed one now. So again, just like the right-handed adapter, once we receive our package in the mail and unbox everything, there should be a few bubble wrap packs. The first one and the largest one will have your fully assembled adapter. This joystick arm is going to be wrapped up in bubble wrap, and attached to that should be a joystick cradle with a linkage bar clipped to the top of it. It'll be sitting on the joystick arm, sort of like that. And then in the middle of the bubble wrap pack and on top of the adapter, you'll find this little baggie. This has the two joystick cradle locking bars. These pieces are completely optional. I'll talk a little bit more about these later, but this is going to be the last part of the install if you wish to do that. So from here, in the second bubble wrap pack, you'll find an extra joystick cradle with a stick click pad attached to that. You'll find two trigger levers. One will be tall, one will be low, and the mid-height one should be installed on the adapter already. The height just determines the distance between the trigger and the lever, so how much space there is for your finger to sit between the lever and the trigger like that. So low, there'll be a tight space. Mid, which is already installed, there's going to be a little bit more of a gap. And tall, it's going to be a higher gap. So if you have a larger finger, you might want to use the tall one. If you have a smaller finger, you might want to use the low one. Or if you just want more travel distance, go with the taller one. Additionally, you'll find a low height bumper lever. And you'll find a tall height bumper lever as well. The last piece, the last extra piece in the bundle should be this extra joystick linkage bar. So in total, you'll have all these spare parts, the two extra trigger and bumper levers, joystick linkage bar, joystick cradle with a stick click pad, and the joystick cradle locking mechanism. So these are all extra parts. We can go ahead and set these off to the side. So now what we have to do is get the actual adapter onto the body of the controller. And first thing that we're going to do is take the adapter and we're going to line it up on its back like this. We're going to set it on its back so that the bottom of it is pointing straight up in the air. And I'm going to take all these button extenders and push them as far back as they'll go, sort of like that, just so that they're clear and out of the way. So from this point, I'm going to take the controller and I'm going to slip the top of the controller just underneath these button extenders. I'm not trying to line up the top of the controller with the lip of the adapter. You don't want to do this first. You just want to get it underneath the button extenders. The reason being is we're going to slide the bottom of the controller into the bottom of the adapter first, and then we're going to slide the top lip of the adapter over the top of the controller. If you do it the opposite way, right, it's actually harder to pull the bottom over the bottom of the controller, and it's easier to push the top over the top of the controller. So that's why we do that last. Even if you do have a pretty strong grip and you are able to install the adapter by pulling the bottom lip over the bottom of the controller after you slot the top of the controller in first, you'll still want to avoid doing this as it can cause excess strain on the adapter, which could lead to potential damage. And that's obviously something that we want to avoid. So once we have the controller underneath the button extenders, what I'm going to do is just slide the bottom of the controller into the bottom part of the adapter, sort of like this. And I'm going to line up the right side of the controller with this retaining arm. So now from this point, what I want to do is stretch the adapter over top of the controller. And I do this by, I'm using my thumb to push down on the controller. and I'm using my index finger to pull the adapter out and over the top of the controller, just like that. And it should just pop right into place. It can only fit one way. You know it's installed if there are no gaps between the body of the adapter and between the body of the controller. So as you can see, it's fully installed now. And then we can just pull the button extenders down and put them on the buttons if they don't go automatically. At this point, if you want to change out the trigger or bumper levers, you can do that. The way that we do that is by, you want to push down on both sides of this little claw. If I'm going to switch out the trigger lever, then I'm going to push on both sides of this trigger lever next to the claw here and simply twist it to the side and pull it out. So then to reinstall that, some of you may find this easier to do it while the adapter is off the controller, because then the trigger and the bumper won't be in the way, especially for the shorter or the mid-height ones. You may need to actually press down on the trigger while installing it just to get enough room for this claw to fit underneath the bar here. If you don't, then there's not enough room for the lever to actually fit underneath the bar. So when we reinstall that, I'm just going to push it to the side like this so that I can fit this tab underneath the bar. And then I'm going to go ahead and push down on the trigger so that I can get the claw underneath the bar just like that. And once it's lined up with the slot that it connects to, I want to evenly pull up on both sides of that trigger lever so that the claw snaps onto the bar. Just like that. It shouldn't require a lot of force. Once you have it lined up, it'll just snap into place pretty easily. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and install the joystick cradle with the stick click pad. You want to make sure that the stick click pad is facing towards the inside of the controller and not towards the outside. This is to be used by the left thumb in order to either control the analog stick if you prefer to use that over the joystick arm, or to click the stick in, because it has that functionality too. So we want to install this with the opening going from the bottom of the analog stick up towards the top. And the way that I do that is by aligning this opening with the bottom of the analog stick like that. And then you can push the joystick cradle into the analog stick until it stops. From here, I would recommend, in order to get this linkage bar clipped to the top of this joystick arm, you can do it how I'm doing it right now, where you just kind of pick it up with your index finger and thumb and then clip the bar on like that. But if you find that to be difficult, or you want an easier way to do that, I would recommend hanging the joystick arm off the side of the desk. So I'm going to use my other hand as if it's the surface of a desk, and I'm hanging this side of the controller off the side of the desk so that the joystick arm is free. And then you can actually line up the linkage bar with the top of the joystick arm and clip it on like that. Now that's it. For most of you, this is going to be the end of the install. If you have an older controller and your thumbsticks are super worn down, you might find that the joystick cradle is loose. If that's the case, that's what these joystick cradle locking bars are for. Friction should be enough to hold this into place, but again, if yours are super worn down, my thumbstick is actually worn down, so after a couple hours of gaming, I noticed that this joystick cradle starts to slide off a little bit and I have to push it back up into place. So to prevent that from happening, that's what these locking bars are for. There's going to be two in this little baggie. Since each adapter comes with two joystick cradles, one with the linkage bar attached and one spare, should you ever need it. You've also got two of these locking mechanisms. So just going to open up this little bag here. Get one of the locking bars. And the way that this works is that this little ball joint snap fit just fits into this little ball joint claw right here. So you can just line up this top hat with the top of the claw, like that. And then I'm using my thumb to push up from the bottom of the analog stick, and I'm using my index finger to push down on the top of the bar. And it should just snap into place like that. And that's it. Now you've got your controller fully installed. If you ever need to remove these button extenders, maybe you need to put a replacement part in. The way that that works is they just snap out of this little socket that they're in. So I would use my index finger to push them out of the socket, and I would use my thumb to actually push on the mounts that they clip into. And once you can get one side out, then it's pretty easy to get the rest of it out. Just snaps off like that. And then installation is the reverse. So I would line it up with the slot that it slides into. And I'm going to use my thumb to push one side in first. And I'm going to use my index finger to push against the top of the mount that these clip into. Also, one thing to note, you want to make sure that these little circles are on the outside of the mounting box. That's what keep it from sliding left to right. So again, to install, I'm going to line up one side first, and I just want to snap one side in, just like that. And then once that one corner is in, the rest of it follows suit pretty easily. So now if you need to take the adapter off the controller, you can do that by unclipping the joystick linkage bar. So from here, I'm going to hold the controller as if I were about to game with it. And then I can push on this button extender mounting box with my thumb until the controller pops out of the adapter, just like that. Then to take the joystick cradle off, I'm going to take the locking mechanism off, and this should slide off the same way that it slid on. That's it. So that was a full assembly and disassembly for both version 2 right and left-handed Xbox Series X and S adapters. If you want to see a full in-depth explanation of how these adapters work, I actually made a full video showing the differences between version 1 and version 2 and showing off some of the features that these adapters have to offer. If you want to check that out, I'm going to go ahead and throw the link in the description, and it should pop up on your screen here in a second as well. If you want to get one of these one-handed adapters for yourself, including left and right-handed versions for the PlayStation 5, those are available at my eBay and Etsy sites, and the links to that will be in the description as well as my channel bio. Anyways, I appreciate you all for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.